Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today, we're looking at a completely monumental shift in the technology we use literally every single day. If you've been paying attention to the tech landscape lately, you know we're standing right on the edge of a massive leap. We're moving away from those basic chatbots we've all gotten so used to, and we're stepping right into the era of autonomous AI agents. Seriously, no more treating your AI like an intern who needs their hand held for every single keystroke. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that means, how it works, and why it's going to completely change the way you get things done.
So it really begs the perfect question to frame our whole discussion. What actually comes after the basic chatbot? Right now, we're all pretty familiar with our standard AI tools, right? You type in a prompt, it gives you an answer. It's incredibly useful, but it's also kind of limited. It relies entirely on your constant input. But what happens when the technology doesn't need you to hold its hand anymore? What's that next exciting tech on the horizon?
Well, let's dive right into this. To understand where we're headed, we need a really clear definition. The answer to our question is Agentic AI. You can think of it as an AI agent. Rather than just answering a single prompt, an AI agent actually accomplishes big, complex projects using a multi-step process. In fact, the absolute best way to understand Agentic AI is to think about how you, a human, would tackle a massive project at work. You wouldn't just do one thing and suddenly stop, right? You'd plan, you'd execute, and you'd adjust. And that is exactly what this new technology is designed to replicate.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Beyond the basic chatbot. 2. The 4 agent superpowers. 3. Standard versus agentic AI. And 4. A really cool mission to Mars example.
Okay, starting with section 1, beyond the basic chatbot, the evolution of AI. We really have to acknowledge the limitations of our current daily AI interactions before we can truly appreciate this evolution.
The stark contrast here is all in the management style. With standard AI, you're essentially a micromanager. The AI requires step-by-step human guidance. You ask it to outline a topic, then you have to ask it to write the first paragraph, then you have to ask it to revise that paragraph. You get the idea. It just doesn't move forward without you actively pushing it. Agentic AI, on the other hand, it guides itself until the project is entirely done. You give it the destination and it figures out the entire journey for you. It's literally the difference between driving a manual car and getting into a fully autonomous vehicle. Moving into section 2, the 4 agent superpowers, how AI agents work. This is the core mechanics, the real technical meat, so to speak, of how an AI agent actually manages to tackle a major task without you babysitting it. And this brilliantly illustrates how agentic AI mirrors a human's project workflow. It utilizes 4 distinct sequential steps, or let's call them superpowers. It starts by being goal-oriented, moves into planning, actively uses tools, and finally, it has the ability to self-correct. Let's break down each of these incredible capabilities, starting with the very first one.
Superpower number 1 is being goal-oriented. With agentic AI, you don't have to outline every single exhausting step of a process. You just provide the final goal. You're not saying, search for flights to Chicago, then open a new tab and find hotels, then cross-reference the prices, then check my calendar. No. Instead, you simply tell it, book me a weekend trip to Chicago under $400. That's it. You give it the finish line and it takes over. And that leads us to the second superpower, planning. Once it has that main goal, the AI autonomously structures its own workflow. It acts just like a project manager, breaking that big goal down into a manageable checklist. It logically decides what needs to happen first, second, and third before taking any action. For example, it just knows it needs to check flight prices before it can confidently book a hotel within that $400 budget. Now for the third superpower, using tools. This is where things get really fascinating because it goes way beyond just generating text. An AI agent can actually reach out and use the exact same digital tools you use. It can search the internet for live information, open other applications on your desktop, draft and send emails, and even use a calculator to crunch those budget numbers. It operates right there within your digital environment to get the job done. Finally, the fourth, and honestly perhaps the most impressive, superpower is self-correcting. Look, in the real world, things go wrong. A standard chatbot might just crash or give you a generic error message if a link is broken or a hotel is fully booked. But an AI agent, it actually adapts to roadblocks. If it hits a problem during its workflow, it realizes the mistake, actively changes its plan, and tries a completely different way to achieve the goal. It doesn't just give up, it pivots, just like you would. That is true autonomy. All right, section 3, Standard versus Agentic AI, a side-by-side look. Consider this your ultimate mental cheat sheet for understanding the difference between the AI of today and the AI of tomorrow. Let's walk through this matrix to really see the evolution clearly. When we look at how it responds, standard AI answers just one prompt at a time. Agentic AI works continuously until the entire project is done. Who does the work? With standard AI, you've got to guide it step by step. With Agentic, it guides itself. But look at the action category. This is huge. Standard AI is pretty much confined to generating text, images, or code. But Agentic AI takes real-world action. It can actually click buttons, send emails, and buy things on your behalf. So the absolutely crucial point here is the massive difference in their thinking styles. Standard AI is entirely reactive. It basically sits there waiting for you to tell it what to do next. Agentic AI is proactive. It thinks ahead, it anticipates the next step in the process without needing your permission to proceed. This is a game-changing leap in how we interact with technology. And that brings us to Section 4, Mission to Mars Example, a real-world example. We're going to bring all this theory to life by thinking through a complex real-world task. Let's say, writing a comprehensive research paper about the planet Mars. If you were to use standard AI to write this research paper, it would be a very human-heavy, honestly frustrating loop. You ask it for facts about Mars. It gives you a summary. Then you have to sit there, read it, find the gaps in the research, go back to the prompt box, and ask it more specific questions, over and over and over again. But with Agentic AI, the experience is completely different. You simply tell it the topic, and boom, it hands you a finished paper. It's a seamless, one-and-done prompt experience. Think about the sheer volume of work the agent is doing entirely on its own here, while you literally just sit back. After you give it the topic of Mars, the AI agent goes online. It searches multiple scientific websites to gather data. It then cross-references everything to check the facts. Next, it logically organizes all those notes into coherent chapters. It writes the entire first draft. And finally, using that self-correcting superpower we talked about, it actually proofreads its own work before presenting it to you. That is the true power of a proactive, autonomous workflow. So we've seen how Agentic AI moves way beyond the basic chatbot by utilizing its 4 superpowers, being goal-oriented, planning, using tools, and self-correcting. It totally shifts our digital interactions from reactive micromanagement to proactive delegation. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When you no longer have to manage every single tiny step of the process, if your AI can plan, execute, and self-correct all on its own, what big project are you going to give it first? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, Focus Learners. Keep exploring, and I'll see you next time.